Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, 3 Steps Your Firm Can Take Today to Develop an Advisory Service Business Model. First and foremost, we hope that you and your loved ones are happy, healthy, and staying safe. For today's webinar, Wolters Kluwer Product Manager Lisa Erickson and Ernie Villani, President and Founder of Boulder Valley CPAs, will discuss insights, experiences, and best practices for developing an advisory service business model. Wolters Kluwer CCH is registered with NASBA as a sponsor of continuing professional education on the National Registry of CPE sponsors. As such, we are excited to offer 1 CPE credit for today's webinar. A total of 4 polls will be conducted throughout the presentation, and you'll need to participate in 3 of them in order to receive CPE credit. If you experience any technical difficulties when trying to submit your poll response, please make sure you let us know in the questions pane. This way we can record your answer manually. Your certificate will be sent to the email you used to register for the webinar within 5 business days after the session. If you do not receive your certificate, please email us at taana-webinars@wolterskluwer.com. Please note, CPE is not available when viewing the on-demand version of this webinar. You will have the opportunity to submit questions by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session. If we do not get to your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up afterwards. You will also have the opportunity to complete a survey about the webinar, our content, learning objectives, and more at the end of the presentation. This survey will also be sent to you in a follow-up email. We appreciate you taking the time to participate in that survey so that we can continue to deliver meaningful content in future presentations. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome today's speakers, Lisa Erickson and Ernie Villani.
Thank you, Alyssa. My name is Lisa Erickson. I am a product manager for the firm management products at Wolters Kluwer. I have over 20 years of tax and accounting software industry and also in public accounting as a CPA. And I'm going to turn it over to Ernie so he can introduce himself as well.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ernie Villani, and I am a CPA in Boulder County, Colorado. We are the traditional small tax advisory CPA firm. I've been practicing in this neck of the woods for about 12 years, but in public accounting for close to 30 years, and very happy to talk to you all about advisory services through Wolters Kluwer.
Well, thank you, Ernie. So today we will be reviewing the trends in the industry, why advisory services, and how to define your service packages. So Alyssa, we'll turn it over to you for a polling question.
Great, thank you. I'm going to launch our first polling question. And the polling question is, what is your primary line of business? Tax, audit, consulting, operations, or administrative, or other? And if it's other, please let us know in the questions pane of the control panel. And this is our first polling question of 4. As a reminder, you need to complete 3 of the 4 in order to be eligible for CPE credit. And we'll give everyone just about 5 more seconds to complete the first polling question. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and turn it back over to you, Lisa.
Wonderful. So it looks like tax was the top line of business, which I'm not surprised.
Perfect fit.
So let's go ahead and talk about the trends in the industry. So I'm sure you've all seen articles regarding the shift to cloud and how that's accelerated since the pandemic. Firms had to all of a sudden scramble to figure out, how am I going to allow my staff to work remotely and allow us to stay connected? So we saw a big shift where firms were moving from on-premise applications to cloud applications. We also see trends where firms are in greater needs of having data in real time so that they can advise their clients and then also see where their firm stands as well with how they're performing. We also see trends where advanced technologies are very important to really create that capacity to allow staff to focus on those higher value work, such as advisory services. And of course, we see all the legislation changes going on, and it continues to increase, and it's harder and more difficult for firms to stay on top of that. And so they're looking at technology opportunities as well to stay on top of all of that. So before the pandemic, there was 69% of firms said that digital transformation strategies were high or on top priority prior, of course, to the pandemic. And then once the pandemic happened, again, firms had to scramble to, again, connect their firm. So we saw 63% increase where firms were focusing on that digital transformation and put money aside in their budget for that. And then 67% of firms accelerated their digital transformation strategy as well. So basically, 2020 became 2025 on the digital acceleration timeline. Also, according to this survey, digital transformation, again, it was very clear that firms had to really rethink how they were doing their work, and that putting technology in the center of what they do was really important for them to be able to grow their firms and also grow their revenue. You see here that 52% of firms said that adding or updating technology was one of their top priorities in growing their business. And you see here as well that growing their client base, recruiting business clients, individual clients, being able to market those services and add additional services was also one of their top priorities to grow their business as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ernie to talk about rethinking the role of technology.
Thanks, Lisa. So I just want to say that I wish I could come here and tell you that I had all this wisdom and I have a crystal ball that saw all of these changes coming, and I created a grand plan to adapt to it and to implement it, but I didn't. We really learned a lot of lessons the hard way, but what I can tell you is that we did begin that transformation prior to COVID. And that transformation began with CCH Access and with the relationship with Wolters Kluwer. We were using standalone software through a very popular program that a lot of people use, but it had no workflow and it had no paperless documents. And so thankfully, we began this transformation when we became CCH Access users. And the moment COVID hit, we were mobile. We took our laptops and we went home and we were ready to work the day after the pandemic began. Subsequently, though, things went from bad to worse, and the Great Recession really hit us very hard, and we lost almost 50% of our staff, and now really needed to embrace technology. We needed to be stronger with AI and with automation and with outsourcing. And we needed to let our team who remained and the team that we would grow, that this was not to replace them, that it was to help them do their jobs better and to grow in the direction that we believed firms were growing in, particularly the need to provide advisory services. And so all of those things, that connectivity and this kind of starting point with CCH really gave us the ability to knowledge share and transfer information with our staff to bring them up to speed, and came with the traditional benefits for reduction of waste, lower cost, definitely improving communication and collaboration. Was the nice thing about CCH being, so deeply connected to Microsoft, working with Outlook and Teams, and helped us create efficiencies. This pivot or the shift towards technology made us become very process oriented, and that really helped the team grow. It empowered them, it gave them agency, it made them feel like it was the process that mattered, not them. And lo and behold, what that has started to do for us, and do so significantly, is it's freed up a lot of time for us to focus on more strategic stuff and value added services for our clients.
So Ernie, that's very insightful. And just some of the trends I have heard from accounting firms as well is, for example, an application that CCH Access offers is CCH Access IQ, which allows firms to provide those proactive advisory services. What it does is it uses predictive intelligence to identify clients affected by legislation changes and tax planning events. And so it basically has a library of those events that provides an overview of that change, and then also the planning opportunities as well. So you talk about knowledge sharing, and I think about, again, embracing technology and having that common library where your staff can go and provide these advisory services as well. And I've heard that really helps with, of course, creating capacity so that your staff can focus on those higher services as well.
Agreed. So long before we started to make this concerted effort to leverage technology and AI and automation and outsourcing, back in 2017, as a firm, we made a collective decision to move towards what we call value-based billing. We knew that we wanted to focus on advisory services, that back in 2017, these things that were coming down the pike at that point was really going to free us up and deliver the service that would carry us into the future, that it was still advisory services, that there was so much to be explored, so much more of a proactive versus reactive approach. And we started to articulate to our clients that we could deliver value-based services to them. At the same time, we basically transformed their understanding of what bookkeeping and payroll was, using those as integral components to deliver the advisory services that they were looking for, and not as some kind of, important, maybe perhaps necessary evil that they needed their accountants to do, but to roll that into those more strategic, forward-thinking ideas and conversations that they were looking to have with us. So we were, we were really in kind of an outlier position in that we were embracing advisory services, that I believed that was the future for us as a small firm. And that coincided and connected perfectly with our desire to use technology to leverage or to create that time and that space that we needed to deliver those services. And with all of those things coming together, we really were able to use really powerful software, like Lisa was mentioning, things that could really deliver business intelligence and analytics for our clients, and to bake those types of things into the advisory services that we were looking for. So we were able to keep the very kind of abstract, deeply connected with data-driven solutions for the client, especially financial planning and reporting. And so, Alyssa, I think there's a polling question for you.
Yes, thank you, Ernie. I'm going to launch our second polling question, and it is, what steps has your firm taken to move towards advisory services? We've already started making changes. We're thinking about introducing advisory services. We're implementing within the next 6 months. We're implementing within the next 1 to 2 years, or we have made no changes to our business model. And this is the second polling question of 4. As a reminder, you need to participate in 3 of the 4 in order to receive your CPE. And we'll give everyone just about 5 more seconds. And just about a couple more seconds. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. And Ernie and Lisa, I'm curious to know if these results surprise you or if they're in line with what you're thinking.
They're in line with what I was thinking and just the trends I have been seeing. A lot of firms have already started making that transition to advisory services, or they're already offering them, but they want to just elevate what they're doing now.
Yeah, this is incredibly encouraging. It definitely strikes the balance. I speak to CPAs all over the country, and this is representative of kind of the makeup. And it's great that there's a group out there that still need to make this change, and it's good to know that they're in a community like this that supports them through that transition, because it's super exciting to go through.
So why advisory services? It's great to see that so many of you are already offering advisory services or plan to make that transition. So according to Spotlight reporting, 80% of those surveyed said that they plan on offering advisory services or plan on expanding their advisory services in the future. 70% said they already perform mentoring, forecasting, or other services. 60% identified as a hybrid firm offering both advisor and compliance services. 25% identified as a traditional firm offering only tax and compliance, and 10% indicated that there are roadblocks preventing them from offering advisory services. So I thought that was really encouraging to see as well. And I think just based on that survey that you all took as well, I think that is in line with what we're seeing here. Just some of the key takeaways as well from this survey is that as this whole pandemic had happened, what accounting firms had found was that there was a greater need for advisory services and that they didn't necessarily have a good business model in place. Sometimes they found that they were providing these advisory services for free and not having a pricing model in place. And so that's something that they're looking at what they can improve upon as well. Another takeaway as well was that they found by providing these advisory services, they were able to generate revenue all throughout the year and not necessarily just at year end doing the compliance work or during tax busy season. And a third takeaway from the survey was that by providing advisory services, embracing technology, this really helped with retaining and gaining staff. There's a continuous war out there for talent out there, and providing these higher services to clients, embracing technology, there's a bigger satisfaction from employees, and it helps with that as well.
So thank you, Lisa. These bullet points are really these are an illustration of the pain that my practice was in prior to kind of stopping in our tracks and analyzing the work that we were doing and why it wasn't working for us. We had built a volume-driven high quality tax business that was really quite commoditized. And what we were doing because, and I have to take full responsibility, so I really did not believe or even see that I was giving away decades of knowledge that me and that my staff had accumulated, all wrapped within a fee for a tax return. And that these emails, right, these quote unquote quick question emails really were very telling that these were the types of services that clients were clamoring for, but we were giving it away regularly. And we were starting to experience trouble from that. Cyclical cash flow through tax season only, not being able to stretch our year, and really never getting to the point where we could differentiate ourselves as advisors. We were a catch-all that people, they had a question, they asked, we did our best to answer it. We never led with any kind of approach where we were a proactive resource. We were constantly falling on being amazing technicians, right? We were like BMW certified. We could drive a race car, right? But we weren't being paid for it. And the clients really started to lose the ability to value the insight. We didn't charge properly for it. We never scoped the agreement the way that it should be. These were one-way exchanges that happened on an ad hoc basis, and it was not pushing the relationship further. We needed to have more relationships with more people to maintain that volume so that we could really generate cash flow. And it was not helping diversify the types of clients that we were working with. We were really stuck and again, forced into really reconsidering the approach that we had taken over the previous 7 years and shifted in the direction that we've been now, collectively over about the past 5. I think
it's really interesting, Ernie. And just some insight from what I've heard from firms as well was that they found that they were being more reactive versus proactive, that they had so many fires to put out, and if they could just go one place to be able to, for example, stay on top of legislation changes and how they can provide that advice to their clients on how they can save money. They were looking for such a tool as that. And again, I talked about CCH Access IQ earlier, and what they find a lot of value is that they can just go to a dashboard and be able to see right there on the dashboard those clients that are affected, and then see that criteria of how they met that particular criteria and how they are affected. And then just with the click of a button, being able to send a client letter to those clients affected, and then again provide those proactive advisory services. So really a game changer out there.
And a game changer for cash flow too, as well. We did not have a lot of ability to generate repeat fees without really restructuring the nature of the services that we were delivering, because tax has such a bookended approach. People expect to pay that fee one time, and it was creating a dynamic that was unsustainable for us. So who are looking for these kinds of things, and who are we working with? And the really rather interesting thing is that many of them were already our clients, right? They were already in-house, and they were seeking out these things, these services that they knew that we could offer, but that we really had not clearly articulated very well to them. We certainly had not been able to define the scope of what those things looked at. We billed for it on a, let's set the clock running and we'll see how it goes. But we were not on the front end, communicating any of the value and any of the ways that we were going to help them feel better about their businesses and sleeping at night, and really positioning ourselves as partners with them to help grow their businesses and to really work towards wealth accumulation. You know, the fruit of their labor is what your small business owner ultimately arrives at. What am I doing with this? Where am I going? How do I transition it? How do I sell it? Strategic thinking on, you know, really not tactical stuff, and certainly not compliance oriented like tax returns or payroll or bookkeeping. Although bookkeeping is so unique, because when you really start to look at it for what it's worth, and that it is the essence of decision making, when you work with somebody through that stuff, you're really increasing not only their confidence but yours and your team, that you're using information to build a trusted relationship with them. So this is kind of a really nice visual of next slide, Lisa. I'm sorry. Yep, thank you. Sorry for the delay. This was our lives in a nutshell. Certainly a lack of time, especially with legislative changes since 2010 seemingly happening every year, not having the time to truly master those changes because it takes 2 to 3 years to do that, feeling overwhelmed on not knowing what to offer. Our biggest sore point, maintaining resources and staff. That was a very challenging thing for us. Knowing where to start, definitely something that we confronted, and really pricing, which there is a lot of information out there these days to help launch you. There's many folks who are doing this now, and there's lots of good information that's out there. And then lastly, generating confidence and a mindset of confidence, and that's what we do with our team, and we work on empowering them. Because if they're empowered, they turn towards the client, and that positive energy starts to pass its way over to the client, and they become more confident.
Yeah, and I think as well, what I hear from several firms is that, hey, this is all great, but it's just not going to work for my firm. I don't have the staff to focus on advisory services and being proactive. You know, all we have time to do is, you know, doing the compliance work, preparing the tax returns. And again, like we talked about, just embracing that technology, creating that capacity, and allowing staff to focus on those proactive advisory services. That really has helped. And as Ernie has talked about, you know, making that shift from compliance to advisory work. You know, again, we can't emphasize enough, you know,
Yeah,
how to make that shift.
and if I could just say that, as I mentioned earlier, these challenges that you see in front of us were not part of a strategic plan that we sat down as a group and we said, okay, we know that these 6 things are likely to unfold in front of us. We lost 50% of our staff from the March 15th deadline in 2020 through the end of August. And key staff, people who were part of a succession plan. And we had no choice. And the folks who are going through this now have a choice and can think through this, and really can start to work with their employees to have a conversation about what they're looking to get out of this. Let them become agents for their own retention and for their own growth. And we're working with higher caliber employees who want to participate at that level and want to be part of something that delivers, you know, trusted advisory services to really nice clients, people that it's a pleasure to work with, and who, you know, respond in these ways that make us, you know and understand that we're giving them, you know, the best of what they could hope for. But we did we did struggle, and I'm really going to say that through that struggle, right through that great pain, has really come, especially over the last year or so, the firm direction that we were looking for, to be advisors first, and to deliver compliance-based services in a completely separate way.
All right. Well, Alyssa, it's time for another polling question.
Great, thank you. I'm going to launch our third polling question, and it is, what challenges or roadblocks is your firm facing when trying to shift into offering advisory services? Unsure of where to start or what to offer, unsure of how to develop the pricing model, lack of time, limited resources, or staffing issues, your firm is facing no challenges, or if you have another challenge, please feel free to put it in the questions pane of the control panel. And we'll give everyone just about 10 more seconds to complete this polling question. This is the third of 4, so one more polling question remaining. And as a reminder, you'll need to complete all 3 of the 4 in order to receive your CPE. And just about 5 more seconds. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. And if you did select other, please select other and then put your comment in the questions pane so we can make sure that you recorded your answer. Okay, all right, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. And Lisa and Ernie, I'm going to pass this back over to you to hear your thoughts.
That's definitely what I hear. The top 2 there, that's definitely what I hear is the biggest struggle.
I mean, the top 3 are like a trip down memory lane for me back to 2016, when I knew that what we had built thus far was not going to be sustainable into the future of the practice. And those were the questions that I had to work through with my staff, and that those were also the questions that I had to look into the mirror and ask myself, was I going to resolve these things, or was I going to continue to stick with the status quo and see what happens?
So,
right.
Ernie, do you want to talk about how you define and built your service packages and overcome those obstacles?
Sure. So this was back in 2016, and tax season had just ended in October, in a way, that most people describe as, oh my gosh, I can't believe how bad that tax season was. And we knew that we wanted to make this shift. And what we did was we started to profile our services and our clients, and we started to really work with the clients that we were having already the most kind of robust relationship with. And we started to put those services, those advisory services that they were looking for, into several different buckets. We knew that some people really just needed, still, even though we were selling advisory, still needed basic. Your average middle of the bell curve people were looking for, about 6 or 7 core advisory topics, things like reasonable compensation, adding and decreasing staff, business best practices, things of that nature. We started to pull together correspondence and really develop a profile of services and the clients that we wanted to work with. And it did help establish who was ideal and how would we use the understanding of ideal to have a conversation with our current clients, and probably just as importantly, if not more importantly, how to find new clients that fit that ideal model. So we continued to carve out what they needed. We continued to articulate that to them in the communication, which was fun, to basically from one year to the next flip from being commoditized tax preparers to advisors, and the unique conversations and laughter and the kind of the quizzical look as to, what changed and things like that. But it all kind of went very well. It identified who was in and who was not, and it helps set the tone for what our current client experience is like, and how we're continuing to grow towards ideal. And ideal for us is a client who understands that we are advisors first. That's really what needed to change in the relationship in both our existing clients as well as the prospects or the prospective clients that we were looking to work with. So tools, we really use communication tools to make sure that from the moment a client or a prospect makes contact with us, what kind of conversation are we having with them? We obviously, as CCH Access users, use a lot of tools in that toolbox to help build out the services that we're doing. Some of the things that Lisa mentioned, but there's a lot out there. And Lisa, you were going to mention something too about that, I believe, as well.
Yeah. So what I have heard from firms, what has been beneficial for them is, for example, leveraging CCH Access workflow to be able to manage that advisory engagement start to finish, from gathering that engagement letter, getting that engagement letter signed, gathering the necessary documents so you can provide your client those advisory services, tracking who does that research and who delivers that advisory service to your client, and being able to have a nice seamless workflow in place to make sure that you're meeting your client's needs as well. And then another helpful tool, as I mentioned, is CCH Access IQ that, again, allows you to provide those proactive advisory services. It lets you basically bundle your services. So if you're doing your tax compliance work, you bundle the advisory services with that. You'll see here a link here at the bottom, leveraging advisory services best practice. This walks you through 3 steps of providing those best practices of advisory services. So first best practice is to develop an advisory service, basically package. And then the second best practice is embracing technology to provide that capacity to allow staff to focus on those advisory services. And then the third best practice is delivering those advisory services. And so these are the steps we're walking through as you hear Ernie talk about how they've implemented advisory services and some of their best practices as well. But again, Alyssa will be sharing this presentation after as well, so you'll have links to these as well.
I just want to say that 3-step graphic is so valuable. And again, we were very fortunate in that we were from a non-process oriented background as it related to the tax software we were using, the tools we were using to manage paperless engagement and to manage workflow. And it was just mind-blowing how much of a guardrail or rails work stream gave to us, right? Immediately we were stabilized in that we had a tool, right? Just like what we're talking about here. And when we started to deliver advisory services, it was so easy for us because we were just following the process model that we had learned by using Workstream. It really just, it popped off the page. So the technology for creating capacity, it's really right in front of you. And the next generation of that, and because we wanted to really to be able to develop this advisory service business model, is what Wolters Kluwer has done with us on outsourcing. So I really can't say enough about how these processes are not as far away from you as you might think. And then they're definitely easy to implement. Well, look, they're not easy to implement, but using what you have as a guideline, it will give you some comfort and confidence that your existing workflows can definitely be adapted for the advisory services, and your staff are using these tools already, and you can get buy-in from them. You can get them, again, when they, in our office, when our team knows everything is hopefully profit, process driven, then they really feel confident and they really take ownership and they really take the lead and charge. And really what's beautiful for us is they work independently, and you really start to see these soft skills that we're talking about that they have, and that just start to come to light, and that everybody starts to benefit and recognize and work into the process. Next one, I think, please. So a little bit about pricing. This is all really transparent with our clients as well as prospects. We really do lead with clarity and consistency around setting pricing on our packages. As an accountant, knowing how to define the scope of a tax return or a financial statement did not automatically translate into being able to define scope for advisory services. It was a journey, and we began with those 3 versions of value-based billing, but that was 5 years ago, and we've really come a long way. Providing advisory and tax services is easy to kind of position in what looks more like a subscription-based model. People pay monthly. Pricing and valuables, really, in my mind, they do matter, and when you connect them to scope, it's easy for everybody to understand. One of the hard lessons we learned is assigning multiples on our existing pricing, and really listening from the beginning to look for the finer points, multiple partner situations, nexus issues in other states, foreign ownership. Understanding scope of what you're doing helps you rate it for difficulty to make sure that the pricing reflects the nuances. Not all S corps are the same. Not all S corps are single shareholder. Not all S corps operate in one state. So those are multiples that everybody has to really dig into and make sure that they don't miss out in all of these things, because it helps really address that complexity that you want to tack onto your advisory services.
And you'll see here as well, there's a link to a return on investment calculator. This is available out on the Wolters Kluwer website as well. There's a link. But this will really kind of walk you through that process of defining your pricing model. So Ernie talked about assigning pricing and multiples. So you'll see reference to these, this return on investment calculator is basically packaging your tax advisory services with the tax preparation work, and that you just automatically bundle them right from the get-go, and that's your business model. It'll walk you through considering the cost of your technology and what are the training costs to train your staff to provide those advisory services. And then what is your profit margin, because your you're taking a look again at how much you're charging for tax compliance work today, and then industry best practices charging 5 times more on average. As Ernie talked about, depending on the complexity of that particular client, it may be more, it may be less. And then looking at your revenue and then those costs with your, again, your staff, you know, the technology you're utilizing, but then also considering what is that capacity that, you know, I'm gaining by investing in this, and what efficiencies are gained by embracing this technology as well. So again, this link is there for your reference as well. So here you'll see a couple screenshots. The one is about the best practices. We talked about the 3 steps that walk you through, you know, providing those best practices. Again, developing an advisory service business model, embracing technology to create capacity to focus on those advisory services. So those are things like we talked about, such things as using workflow or workstream to track that particular advisory engagement, utilizing tools such as CCH Access IQ to provide those proactive advisory services related to tax matters. And then also looking at, hey, you know, maybe my firm wants to outsource, and we have a service called Expatax outsourcing, where firms decide, hey, you know, maybe for this group of clients here, I want to outsource, and that may then create capacity within your firm to focus on those advisory services as well. And
just a point about that too, Lisa, as somebody who runs a firm that has personally benefited from Expatax and the folks who lead that group, similar, right? That was baptism by fire for us. I barely understood what outsourcing was, but when you have a 7-year senior leave 5 days before the March 15th deadline, and you have a group at Wolters Kluwer who shows up the very next day and shows you how the system works and onboards you in 48 hours and connects you with the team that you're going to be working with. We only survived that experience because of our outsourcing relationship that came in the middle of the night, and where we go from there and where we are now is just extraordinary what that's done for us.
Absolutely. And so again, it's just taking a look at what opportunities you have out there, what's going to work best for your firm. So these are different resources for you to utilize.
Yeah, the best practices is a roadmap for sure.
So Ernie, how do you communicate your business model and transition clients over?
I mean, largely speaking, I follow the best practices for providing strategic advisory services. It's kind of one of the interesting things about this is that what you're talking to your client about to you is largely, it feels unremarkable, right? You start to have these conversations with clients at the very beginning. And so everybody from our front desk receptionist through admin, through our director of operations, they are communicating the message to new client prospects as well as existing, which is a little bit of a challenge with the existing folks, but it's a challenge worth accepting, that we are different, and that if you are looking for commoditized tax return preparation, this is unfortunately not the place for you, because we're more. And that everything that we say and that we do, all our marketing, all our interactions with new and existing clients is that we start with why. This has been a powerful notion or understanding for us. It comes through Simon Sinek's Starting with Why, and it really focuses on shared beliefs. And when we start to communicate with clients that this is not about price and it's not about speed, but that it's deeper than that, and that more importantly, what we do, and I am sure most people on this call feel, this profession has grown profoundly harder to navigate. There are people who don't want to do this very much. There are systems and technology that we need to embrace. And if we don't start letting the world know that we're different, they're not going to treat us differently. And using the understanding that people don't come to you for what you do, they come to you because of why you do it. It's a profoundly more impactful experience to have with a client. And the earlier you start to share that messaging with them before they become a client, the easier that it goes. And it's demonstrable. The quick kind of way it works with us is we have a client service team here, and with our existing clients who have not really been engaged at an advisory level yet, but the time is coming, we're feeding them advisory driven content in a way that's engaging and informative and really starts to set the tone that we are now giving you information in advance of you asking for it, that we understand who you are and we understand what your business is like. And we really do or are capable of finding out what it is you're looking for and what's important to you, as well as the client is making sure that they are a fit. And the last bullet point, that you can afford to be choosy. And in Colorado and in Boulder County, we're in a very fortunate, robust business environment. This is a hotbed for startups. We do not, at this point, work with 1040 only clients any longer. They must be interested in establishing an advisory-based relationship. And we are very comfortable that if it's a matter of budget, that's okay. There are folks out there who are still willing to deliver commoditized, tax-oriented or tax-centric types of services. And what's happening to our community and our industry, our accounting community, is that more people who have a history in this area can afford to be choosy and look for the clients that they want to work with. So, how to transition old clients to the new business model? The joke is kind of don't, but that would be a really bad business decision. So embrace the change, embrace the challenge. We work very hard as a group to really figure out who fits. We profile these clients, and that goes hand in glove with empowering our staff. Our approach here is to have a tool and to have a communication chain for them to start providing feedback, because they're there in the muck and the mire, right? They're our boots on the ground, communicating with the client on a regular basis. They're starting to and they're able to communicate to us these profile issues, and we have a nice healthy breakdown. We have the folks that we call our true believers. These are start with why people. They share the belief that this is hard. They share the belief that hiring a professional is absolutely worth every penny. We have our middle of the road folks, kind of understand. They pay attention to how the world is changing around them. They're not really going to volunteer the opportunity to pay for more, better articulated, scope-driven services, but they're there to listen. And then we have the folks that are never going to change. These are the people that I confess were folks that I enabled. I built this practice from scratch when we moved out here 12 years ago, and we accepted clients out of need, not really out of the desire to build a healthy practice. And it's likely that we're going to have a difficult and a parting ways conversation with those people. The transition that we work out, it comes through that explanation that I just described. We have put a lot of effort into the messaging. We are fortunate enough here to have qualified staff that work on this. We make it compassionate. This is Boulder County, of course, so we were a little touchier, warmer, fuzzier, so to speak. But we explain to them in very clear terms, and also give them timing that you can see, and some more than others. I think it might sound possible to draw hard lines in the sand, but the world is a different place, and people have been through a lot. And most of the clients we work with are good people. It's just a change has come our way, and therefore it's coming their way. And so we're reasonable, and we don't take a hard line, and we don't cordially invite them to go elsewhere. We are very mindful of the challenges that people are going through. So yeah, this is a really great illustration of if you're not ready to change and you hear what we're saying about Expa-Tax, this is a really powerful graphic, Lisa.
Yes, I agree with that. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about what's next here and wrap us up. So you heard me talk about CCH Access IQ throughout this webinar. If you'd like some more information on updates, please feel free to scan this QR code. As well, you'll see out there that there's information about upcoming webinars. Also, there's a return on investment calculator and some other great resources. We will be rolling out states, so you can get updates about that as well. And then save the upcoming dates. We have a webinar scheduled on September 20th to talk about how to choose the technology that will help you create capacity for advisory services. And then on October 18th, we have advice and best practices on delivering strategic advisory services from firms with successful advisory service practices. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alyssa for our final polling question.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to launch our final polling question. And it is, would you like to learn more about the technology that Wolters Kluwer has to enable advisory services, which would be CCH Access IQ, as well as Expa-Tax and several other firm management solutions? And we'll just give everyone a couple more seconds to complete this polling question. As a reminder, it is the final polling question, and you need to have completed 3 of them in order to receive your CPE. We did have several questions come in for Ernie and Lisa. Unfortunately, with the time and almost being at the top of the hour, we will not be able to get to them. So I will certainly make sure that we follow up with you if you had asked a question, and we will have those ready to go for you within the next couple of days, as well as your CPE certificates. If you completed all the polling questions required, you should receive your certificate within the next 5 business days. So with that, I'm going to close the poll and turn it over to Lisa and Ernie for closing remarks.
I was just going to close by saying that this really may seem very daunting, and there is a lot of hard work to be done, but if you're on this call, you're already there. The resources and the information and the willingness of your clients and your team to adapt and to grow in this direction is now is the time. And my only regret in much of this was not doing it just a few years sooner than I already had. But we're a great indication of how a lot of time and effort can really get you to where you want to be with this.
Thank you, Ernie. I totally agree. And we want you to be successful. And as we build out our technology solutions, we want to make sure we're meeting your needs and that we are following these trends that are going on out there in the market and making sure you are successful. So I want to again thank you all for joining us today, and hope to see you on our upcoming webinars.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye now.